I'm doing this show under great duress. Not because I had back surgery yesterday, because something happened that I never thought would happen or could happen. The Phillies would lose their first round series, technically the second round of the playoffs, in 4 games to the New York Mets. Why? Well, because the Mets were the better team. Yep. I can't believe I'm saying that. The Mets were the better team in this series. And you know why? Because the Mets had better balance in their lineup. And the Phillies were top-heavy, and their top wasn't even that heavy. So when we look at this game and we look at the series, you can look at a lot of things. You want some Grizzly numbers here? Well, first of all, let's go with this. To be sure, their bullpen folded up into fatigue. I don't know what happened. They completely lost it. Maybe it was the break. I don't know. As I've said many times, fatigue makes you what? It makes you a coward. And in the end, this is the most hurtful of it all. Bill was right about the lack of an offense carrying over from last year and catching up to them certainly after the All-Star break. And yes, the GM didn't do enough at the trading deadline. So let's look at some of the numbers here. The Phillies yesterday, in a must-win situation, were 4 for 31, with 2 of those hits being infield hits. They were 0 for 9 with runners in scoring position. They hit 186 for the series. The bullpen gave up 16 earned runs in 11.2 innings with a 12.34 ERA. They were outscored in their 3 losses 17-5. And now we're going to look at all these at-bats and all the feeble at-bats when the Phillies got in good hitters counts. They couldn't do anything. And then they got themselves in bad hitters counts the whole game by swinging at pitches without discipline. So where does this leave the Phillies? I don't know. You know, we talk about a window of opportunity, a window of winning a championship. I don't know. Has this gone out the window? There's going to have to be changes. You can't just come back with the same thing. You got to mix some stuff up. So I don't know what they're going to do. They have all these long-term contracts. They're paying a lot of money to people. What are they going to do with their bullpen now? They thought they had a good bullpen. It turned out they didn't have a good bullpen. And the other team's bullpen, who we thought was inferior, weathered the storm for the Mets. The Mets were a hungry team. The Phillies were not. The whole gang is here. Bill Colarulo, Ray Dunn, as in the Phillies are done. Bill Colarulo, you are correct. It carried over from last year's playoffs. It carried over from the week off. And it carried over from bad baseball after the All-Star break. Your thoughts, my friend?
Well, first of all, good morning, Mike. Thanks for coming in today, battling through the injury so that we could talk about this. I don't have any joy in the fact that I was, quote-unquote, right. I wish that we were sitting here today talking about a big Game 5 tomorrow night with Zach Wheeler on the mound. But what the problem was that I saw after the All-Star break, and we've talked about it a lot on this show, is I think the manager and the president of baseball operations, Dave Dombrowski, allowed complacency and a losing culture to set in with this team. This team that was a phenomenal baseball team. Sports don't work this way, Mike. You know this. You know that you can't allow complacency and a losing mindset to fester in a clubhouse. And that's what they did. I don't want to talk about the 5th starter, but they did accept a loss every 5 days. The manager didn't want to hold a lot of players accountable. We've talked about it at length. Rob Thompson is a baseball guy. He's going to try to keep these guys comfortable. Well, maybe that's not what they needed. Maybe they needed a kick in the rear end. Maybe they did need. We had a caller yesterday say, throw in water coolers. Maybe that's what they needed. But I know for a fact, when you look at the GM, they definitely needed some more bats in the outfield. You can't have your center fielder and your left fielder as your 8 and 9 hole hitters in a lineup that you expect to win a World Series. You just can't. Not when your catcher is hitting the way JT is now. You need to get production from your outfielders. It's a sad day, and you're right. Is the window now closing on this team? Do we now have to worry the entire regular season? We've talked about this, the Negadelphia mentality. Can we even enjoy this team next year during the regular season, or have they become the 76ers where it's now wake us up in October? Because no matter how good of a start they have next year, you know this is going to be festering in that Negadelphia mindset that we already have.
I don't have anything to refute. I don't have any counter argument to what's happened because I was really, I guess, conned into thinking that they were going to be fine, that they're a good team, and we're shortchanging their abilities. But it was clear when you look at the Mets lineup and how they play offense and the way the Phillies do, it was a complete mismatch. And I never thought I would see that. I never in a million years thought that the Mets would be the better team. And I guess when you lose the odd games in the series, you're cooked. You got to win game 1. You got to win game 3. They didn't do either. And last night, listen, you want to second guess what happened last night? We're going to go through. I'm going to go through all through these innings and go over these at-bats and where they failed. But also, you look at the big bullpen move that he made with Estevez having to come in there in a precarious situation because Hoffman was just blown out. And you can tell he had no command. He threw 2 balls in the dirt. When he hit Marte, that was where I would have got him. Now, I don't know if Estevez would have done any better in that situation, but you had to bring him in with the bases loaded when it was clear Hoffman was done. He was cooked.
Would you have allowed Hoffman to come out in the 6th?
Yeah, I would have allowed him to come out in the 6th, but once he lost command in the 6th inning, I would have got him out there a lot quicker than he did. He let him after runners were first and second. He let him out there. It was clear that he had nothing.
Yeah, because he comes out in the 6th, which I agree with. I was okay letting him do it, but he gives up a single, then a wild pitch, then a hit by pitch, then another wild pitch, then a walk, and then he takes him out. I mean, at what point did you not realize you got to get this guy out of there? After the first wild pitch, it was clear he has no control now this inning.
The 6th inning turned out to be the key inning because in the top of the 6th, Harper leads off with a double. And Castellanos strikes out. Now, you can say, on a bad pitch, by the way, now you can say Castellanos, you can't blame him. He struck out. You got to put the ball in play there. You got to get him to third base somehow. And then he walked Bohm, and then a slider right down the middle to Real Muto, and he strikes out. And then Stott grounds out to end the inning. And then in the bottom of the 6th inning is where all the mayhem happens. He uses Hoffman in the 5th to get Alonso and Iglesias, and he comes back out with him in the 6th. Martinez hits the single up the middle. He goes to second on a wild pitch. That, to me, is the tip-off right there. He doesn't have command of that slider. It's in the dirt. So when he hits Marte, I got to get him. It's because he threw another wild pitch, and now it's second and third, and he walks Taylor, and the bases are loaded with nobody out, and here comes Alvarez.
Man, would you have brought in Estevez there? We could debate Hoffman getting out early.
I don't know who else I'm going to bring in. You're now trying to use your best guys. You think are your best guys in that situation, and so you brought Estevez in. I don't know. Is there a better choice? Did you want Wheeler to warm up? Is that who you wanted? You wanted Wheeler? Who did you want? Ruiz? Who did you want in that situation?
I guess you got to go Estevez. I mean, that's what I'm trying to think. Was there any better option? I wouldn't have brought in Wheeler there. I guess you could argue Sanchez, but he's a lefty, right? And you had...
Well, the lefty would have at least turned around Lindor, but then you're facing other righties in that lineup, so he would have had to pitch the 3 guys. I don't know. I'd rather have Lindor hitting from the right side than the left side because he cranked that off Estevez and a pitch right in the heat zone, a little bit off center, but he smoked it. And that's all she wrote. Now, again, you can look at it and go, well, yeah, if they score more runs, that doesn't matter. You're right. You're right. But at that point, you're trying to manage every out, and it didn't work out. But it didn't work out because this team obviously was flawed offensively.
They were. They were flawed offensively. And that bullpen, you mentioned what they did. Their 11.37 ERA is the 5th highest ever in postseason history.
Now, who had that on the bingo card, though?
Nobody.
The bullpen just did not deliver, and they expected to deliver. And I'm looking around baseball, and it looks like every bullpen delivers for these teams. And this was the bullpen that didn't deliver.
Did you see what the Dodgers did last night?
Yeah.
A shutout with 8 relievers.
Yeah. 610-632-0975 is how you get in. Listen, this is your day, man. I have no defense for the Phillies, so I'm not going to, whatever the fans are thinking right now, just let it fly. And we're prepared for it. It's the Mike Missanelli Show.